Mm. Mhm. Mm. Hi everyone. Hey Kenyatta, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Everybody's popping up under one person's name. Huh. Well, I guess it's because he sent the invitation through that other system. You can change it if you want to. If you put your mouse over the little. Are you on your cell phone? Okay. I don't know how to do it on the cell phone, but we'll.
It's okay.
Okay. I know. You're not Jay Williams. It looked like Reverend was standing in the back of you.
That's my background.
Ew.
Near me. I have to keep them near me.
So he hovering over you. Hi everyone.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So funny enough, um, the way that we have our invitations going through Mobilize, it has everyone's name as the person that was working with me to get those invites out. So when you come into the Zoom, you're coming in under his name for some reason. We have to figure out how to disable that. So if you're on a computer and you see, um, uh-oh, and you see your name is Jay Williams, it's because of that, but you can feel free to change that. And our speaker today is letting me know I need to give him the link. So just a second here. Let me get to him. Uh, Everybody will start in just a second. Let's see. So I know we have Eva, Kenyatta, And it says Jay Williams in a lot of the spaces. I know that's Jay Williams is not all these folks. Stephanie Hicks. Whose name did I not say while we wait? Paul Kennedy just joined us. I was just explaining to the group, if your name is under Jay Williams, it's because of, we sent this through Mobilize and he was helping me to get the invites out. So we're still learning that platform. We know now that we need to make sure you can, that it doesn't come through through his name in the Zoom.
Well, we all thought it was a chance at redemption with somebody else.
Another trip around the sun.
Yeah.
How you doing, Miss Cadell?
I'm hanging in there. Hanging. How about you, Evan?
Doing good. Can't complain. How's everybody feeling today? We made it to Thursday, right? After a very interesting Tuesday. Just give it a few more minutes. I mean, a few more seconds. Here we go. Here's our speaker. Hey, Brandon. Hi. There you go.
Hello. Sorry about
How
that.
are you? That's okay. That's we live and we learn. Thank you for being patient. So everyone, thank y'all for hopping in. We'll go ahead and get started. The way we'll do this, I'll ask Brandon some questions. I'll pause at about 4:25, 4:30 to see if there are any questions you have. Then I'll ask him a few other questions, and then we'll stop at 4:45 to just create more time for open dialogue and questions that you might have for him. Again, Brandon Rhodes is one of the 3 people serving on our data team, but he has a career that's much bigger than that sort of introduction. So I want to make sure he has space to give you his introduction. But just to let you know, he lives and works in Houston, and working as a freelance data and field strategist allows him to work with different groups and campaigns around the country. I met him through a friend that I worked with when I lived in Houston for one of the county, and we both worked with one of the county commissioners there. And she highly recommended, two of my colleagues there highly recommended him. And it's definitely been a great experience working with him. I've learned a lot. So Brandon, maybe we could start off. What's your name? Where are you from? And what's the mood in your city right now?
Hi. I'm Brandon Rhodes. Again, I live in Houston, Texas. Born and raised here. Traveled across the country, but always seem to make it back home to Houston. Right now, we are a little mixed. We had a few wins locally, so we're happy about those. But statewide, we're a little sad at the losses that we took a little bit. So it's a little mixed here. And then, a little anticipation because we, like everybody else in this country, is waiting to see how the White House is going to turn. Is it going to stay red or is it going to go blue?
Right. And, on the flyer, I identified you and Scott as data and field strategists. Can you tell us a little bit about what data and field strategists do and what motivated you to choose that career?
So as a data person, the first lesbian mayor in Houston. While I was an organizer, we talking some people, but not other people. Why am I only going to this door on this street, but then I'm knocking on 8 doors on the street next, the street over? And they were like, oh, because the data shows that this person, might lean towards us, but they need some conversation. But there's 8 people on the next street. And I was wondering, like, how did you get that data? So I started talking to the data person there, and then it blew my mind that you can find these kind of things through modules. And that started my thirst for data.
And what skills and background experiences does a person need to have in order to be an effective data and field strategist?
Ooh, you don't really need to have the background for it. Like, I got my degree in psychology. So I just had like a thirst to understand people, but I also have a love of numbers. So if you just have a love of numbers and a thirst to investigate, you can always learn the skills. You can go to school for it. You can go to data trainings. There's plenty of them across the country. Or you can just ask, people who know data, do they have time to show you a thing or two, and then take it from there. I'm lucky enough that I ran into a few people that like took me under the wing, more inclined and had the financial skills available to me. I went to like data trainings and learned more and more stuff. That's how I got into it.
And who typically hires, people that work in the data and field strategy line of work? Where do you go to? Who are your typical clients that you're working with?
Man, that's another fun question. Who doesn't hire data and strategy people nowadays? I've been lucky enough to work for C3s and C4. It's just like Planned Parenthood hire. Democratic Party, hell, the Republican Party, they hire as well. A lot of different C3s. I will always tell you that. And then honestly, elected officials. Elected officials are always looking for data people to let them know where can they go to make an impact in the districts that they represent. So those are a lot of different places you can look for if you want to get into the data position.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the moments in your career that you felt have been most defining for you, as you've kind of figured out what type of data and field strategist you wanted to be. So when you just think about some of the moments that were the gut check moments that really kind of they were sink or swim, or they pushed you forward in the work, or they really made you think, this is what I want to be doing. What were some of those moments for you?
I think the first time that I worked for Planned Parenthood, it was the rollout of the ACA. And raised. My background and my family is that they're Haitian immigrants. They moved here from Florida, and then from Florida they moved here to Houston. Like, it was my dad, my mom, they split, and then it was my mom, and we stayed in like one of the poorest neighborhoods in Houston.
Where?
We're South Side. Well, I was in South Side Houston. I was MLK and Selinsky. So right before you get to Pearland, South part of Houston. The nickname for that neighborhood, I kid you not, guys, is Dead End, because the biggest street in that neighborhood was one side was a dead end, the other side was a dead end. So when people were like, oh, I stay off of Selinsky, they're like, oh, you stay in the dead end. So jump to me working for Planned Parenthood. We were trying to unveil the ACA, and the people that Planned Parenthood sent to Texas didn't really know that much about Texas.
Right.
They were like, where should we go? And they were just going off, we're going to send you here, here, and here. And these places that they were naming were very affluent neighborhoods. They were just going off of where they thought they can get Planned Parenthood support. And I pushed back then with the data. I was like, no, if you really want to be impactful about the ACA and actually get the numbers, you need to hit these neighborhoods. One of the neighborhoods being the neighborhood that I grew up in.
Right.
So I think what blew my mind was that when we went into that neighborhood and we had to go find a community center in that neighborhood, set up shop, send cameras out to go knock, have phone bankers to call people. But we, in just that neighborhood alone, signed up 5,000 people in one weekend. We had lines around the corner of the building because they didn't know where to go sign up for an ACA, but they knew they had to sign up for the ACA because the deadline was coming and they didn't want to take a penalty on their taxes, and they also needed health care.
Right.
And like, it blew my mind that no one thought to come to these people and help them out. So I found that myself helping, like knowing data and knowing to push this on Planned Parenthood was something that blew my mind. I was like, this is what I want to do. There were people that I grew up with, or like that never had healthcare in their lives, and us knocking on our doors and being like, "Hey, this is how you need to sign up." Like, oh, I didn't know where I was supposed to go. So that was a big thing for me in understanding that the data that I knew, as well as like the background that I had, really changed that neighborhood. So that's why I do what I do.
Hmm. And when you think of, so you kind of had that moment sometimes when younger people are working in organizations, especially those that have a huge, a lot of name recognition, and you come in with an idea like what you had, you may be lucky enough to have a supervisor that says, "Great, Brandon, that I think we need that." Sometimes you might have somebody that says, "Get out of here. What do you know? How are you going to tell me how to do this? This is your first trip around the sun or whatever." Sounds like you had somebody that pushed you forward. Who are some of the mentors over the course of your career who've been the most meaningful to you, and why do they stand out for you?
I think one mentor that stands out in my mind is Oscar Bowman. He was another person like that came from field. When I say field, he started off as an organizer for a Texas organ. Before I got there, by the time I got there, he was like their main data person. And I saw he knew all these things about Van. He knew all these things about like how to monitor data, how to work tablets from afar. And I was like, oh my God, how did you learn all that? He's like, oh, one, I use Google. Two, I went to these training camps. Two, I went to these training camps. Here are these training camps. But you know what? Show up on Saturday. I know you're a field organizer, but show up on Saturday, and I'm going to teach you how I do these things with tablets, and you can start learning that on Saturday. And so that's what like really got me into like a higher level of data.
Yeah.
And when I learned out how he did it, I was like, wow, really? He's like, yeah, look on these websites. And from there, like Osher didn't stay at top. Once that round of elections was over, he got up. It's like, I'm going to go to DC because I don't feel like I learned anything more here. So he went to DC, ended up in another group. And for like a year, I left top and I went back to Planned Parenthood, and I had to go to DC. And they were like, so you guys, you're going to have to do your data training. And in comes Oscar with America Votes. And you're like, really? He's like, oh, he's the data director.
Oh, man.
Like, I really feel like blessed to have this guy in my life training me this way, because now like he's doing it for across the country. And I got in on the ground. I can just call up anytime with a question. So Oscar Bowen is one. Another one is Risha Thomas. She does data and political work for unions. Right now she's with SEIU Texas. And she blows my mind. Actually, Evan, you might know Risha because she worked at the county at one point.
I don't think so, but there was
when Ellis, I was like, she didn't stay there long. I think that first year that Ellis was in, she was the community outreach director.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think is the internet connection not very stable for everyone else? I think it may be for everyone. So I'm gonna close out and then talk to you on this other one. Hold on for a second, Brandon. I don't want to destabilize this. I hope it doesn't end. Let me transfer the host actually. Yeah, and then okay, all right. You got me, Brandon?
Yeah, actually, you're a little clearer now.
Okay.
Okay, awesome.
Good. So I want to make sure that in case it was slow for anybody else, that they caught the name of some of the organizations you were mentioning. So you said TOP is the Texas Organizing Project.
Correct.
And then you said America Votes, right?
Yes.
Yep. And just so y'all know, for organizations, resources, websites, writers, anything like that, we'll make a list at the end of the call and make sure that y'all get them and have the website link so you can follow up in case you're interested. Okay, and then you were just talking about there's this distinction between people on the data side and people who are on the field side
Mm-hmm.
in the work that we do. Can you say a little bit more about the race and class dynamics that can play into that data verse field? I don't want to say verse field, but the data field world. Sometimes they're together like this. In some organizations, they can be separate. What can you say a little bit more about that?
Um, yeah, I can. So like when you're on that field side, you're that person that's out there collecting the data. And when you're on the data side, you're the person that's reading the data and trying to understand what can you do with it, or what can we do to fix it so we can get what we need out of the community or put what we need into the community. I like how you said data versus field, because sometimes it can be like that sometimes, because the person that's out in the field that's knocking doors or calling sometimes feel like data is disassociated with them. It's just some guy in the back or some woman in the back that's telling me to call these numbers. And when it's like that in the office, it has to be an open dialogue. It has to be the person in the field telling you like, hey, they're liking this script, or hey, I seem to see a lot of people this way, because sometimes the person in the back is not seeing that. So
Yeah.
if you have that open dialogue and a true partnership between the field and the data, you can get just about anything done. But if you have that wall between the two, it will cause a campaign to crumble and fall. Okay,
so building on that part, and then this will be my last question before we open up for our first round of questions from our everybody else that's on the call. When you think about people who do a really good job or at either bridging that gap to creating one cohesive team, or just people who are very forward thinking and creative, imaginative within the world of data and field strategy, who are some of the people who inspire you most and really push you forward in the way you think about your work?
Cool. So people wise, besides the two that I've already mentioned, I will never let this get outside of a meeting and he's not on this Zoom. So I'm not afraid to say it. My brother is actually a data person as well. He works for community outreach group. The way that they use data to organize is always mind blowing to me. So like when I'm talking to him, he's telling me like, oh, we're using all these new programs, and we are using Civis, and we're using Van in a new integration way. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to know it. I want to learn it. How are you doing it out in the field? And he'll break it down for me. Or it's the other way around. I'm telling him like a great program that we're doing out here in Houston, or the work that we're doing out in Alabama. And like, he's like, oh man, I want to hear more about it. Why didn't you tell me about this? And I feel like it's the competition / like growth of our brotherhood and our love of data that pushes me to do things as well. Or like if you ever hear like community outreach group coming to your town, know that they're about to do an amazing job. Like
what's their name? What's the name of this?
Community outreach group.
Community outreach group.
You might hear the name is COG. They're okay. They used to be, and it's very weird now, they used to be an LLC of Planned Parenthood, and they still do a lot of work with Planned Parenthood, but now they're kind of their own group.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay. So for folks who joined us this afternoon, does anyone have any questions? You can feel free to just start talking or drop them in the chat, and we'll see it that way.
There's going to be questions by me, guys. Any questions that you have about data that you want to know about, I'm here to answer.
Okay, Paul asked, what is Brandon doing in Alabama?
Well, and teaching the table members about Van and then like basic data skills.
Yeah. He's actually technically still in Houston, but he works with Alabama Forward as a consultant to help our members and allies, non-member groups, to use the voter data access network account that we have, and that is used as people are doing community engagement. So when they're registering people to vote, encouraging people to really embrace their role as members of society by voting, and really trying to keep track of everything that happens when people, as Brandon's been saying, go out and do field work. The van is the place where you store all that information so that you can constantly keep up with people and keep track of what you've done. Do you have regular trainings and data use, especially for van? Yes, we have. We've been doing them on a come as you are on a, some people have asked for one-on-one trainings. We have some trainings that Brandon and Scott have written in the PowerPoints and have recorded. We can send you links to that if you just send me an email. And they'll be working with us until November 23rd. So I strongly encourage anyone on this call who wants to learn more, email datateam@alforward.org. I'll put it in the chat so everyone has that email address, and then they can help you learn a little bit more. If you email there, we'll set you up with a temporary van account just so you have an opportunity to explore what they're teaching you. Okay, are there any other questions? So we'll have another, some more time for questions from everybody in the room. Let's see. So let's talk about tools, Brandon. You mentioned van, and you've been saying some names of some tools. What are the tools people need to effectively use data when doing civic engagement work?
Now, I think I'm gonna just throw out like some very basic like resources you can use. One, I'm gonna say Van. I know we're preaching Van, but Van is a very awesome tool to use. It can teach you. It will give you information about anyone in any neighborhood that you want to reach out to that's registered to vote. Another resource that I use is the Analyst Institute. They have so many different scripts and modules that are not in Van. Used and like it's all free. Like any scripts that they have that they've used to talk to people about voting, about being engaged, about civic engagement, or even different topics, they have it. It's all free. And I am not ashamed to say that I have liberated some scripts from there and tweaked them for things that I need to do. Another good program that I like to use, Mobilize, but I think Evan, you already know about Mobilize, so for events and things like that. And then a good texting program that I always like to keep in my back pocket is Spoke, because it's the easiest and cheapest one out of all the texting groups. Like a lot of people like to use Get Through or Hustle, but I like Spoke for like texting.
Get Through, Hustle. I'm putting some of these in the chat as you're saying them. And then whichever ones I miss, I'll catch later. Thank you for listing those. And then you mentioned earlier you spent some time on Google, YouTube University.
Yeah, YouTube University, man.
What are some of the trainings that are free out there that people could, that you would suggest, you'd point us to?
Data Dims. I'm gonna say Data Dims is a great one. It's a
you spell that?
month-long.
Oh, Data Dims, like
chat.
the party. Okay. Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's not affiliated with the party. Just to put that out there, guys. It is a 2-month immersive training. At least that's how they're doing it this year because of COVID-19. Usually, as of last year, you would fly out for a week, and they would train you on everything. They will give you, you'll be showing up, and then they will guide you through everything. But they do tell you like you're gonna have to sacrifice and immerse yourself in that world. And then even after that week, they do follow-ups with you the entire year, gradually pushing you up the level. It's a great program. So Data Dam is a good one. What was another one that I thought was good? It used to be forget their. They just changed their name.
Mm.
And what I mean they changed their name, they used to be a power. They used.
If you remember it afterwards, we can put it in the follow-up email.
Yeah, please. Like, sorry about that. It lost my mind, but
Yeah.
they used to be a union-based data training, but they've stepped away from the union and they've become their own group. And I can't remember what their new name is.
Okay, we'll follow up on that.
And then lastly, like if you actually just take that van guide and like give it a read through sometimes and just play with van while reading that van guide, it'll guide you through some stuff, and it's right there in front of you.
So let's say I go through, the people on this call. Let's say we commit to downloading these tools and going through these trainings, and we're working with our various organizations, and then we sit down and we come up with a field plan. What does a good field strategy look like to you? How do all of these tools actually, what is it like to take this off the internet and actually put this into use where we're tracking what we're doing? What does that look like? Can you walk us through the steps of building that type of plan?
A good actual field plan, or you want a good data game? Which one you want? I'll give you both answers, but which one do you want? You want a good data game or you want a good field plan?
Let's do data game and then let's do field plan so we can see the difference between the two.
Game is identifying your universe first, because you need to know where you're going and who you're talking to. This is assuming that you already know what you want to talk to them about, because you're not just going to their door just talking about anything. You're talking about what you need to talk about. So once you identify your universe, you want to identify how many people you need to talk to get the outcome that you need. And this time, so we're going to say you're trying to identify enough people that you want to get elected. So you want to identify what's the number of people you actually need to talk to get to someone elected. After you have identified that number, you want to triple that number, because that is basically what your universe is. After you have those two things, you're ready to go. That's going to be your good data plan, because after that, you know what you want to talk to them about, you know who you're going to talk to, and the field side, you need to identify how many passes it's going to take to get to touch everybody, because in a field side, you're going to be like, well, I'll talk to them once. Everybody on this thing know that if you talk to somebody once, they're not going to do what you need them to do. If you talk to them twice, they still might not need them to do. You talk to them 3 times, they might do what you want to do. But if you talk to them 4 times, chances are, if they talk to you 4 times, they're on your side. They're going to do what they want to do. On the field side, you're gonna want to have at least 4 passes. You're gonna want to have a good way to ensure that they're gonna go vote, and then you're gonna have to have a good way to follow up with them to make sure that the voting is done.
Okay. So when you have more than one organization working together to do those things that you just said, you can think about your work in Houston and nationally. What role players and skills are critical to developing effective collaboration? And do you have examples?
I think effective collaboration will come with someone that a good chair, someone who can pull people to the table. That person that pulls on the table has to be skilled at identifying what is the shared goal of everyone at that table. Because if you can't do that, then why are these, like, other groups gonna be like, why am I here? I've been at tables where me and another person looked at each other like, why are we here? They only want us here because of our. Evan froze now. Okay. Oh, there we go.
Yep. It cut off. What was the last part you said after they only want us
Okay,
here?
after you. They only want us here for our name. Like, you have to identify a common goal, because, like, if you got some big names there and even some small names there at this table, and they don't feel seen, they're gonna walk away. They're gonna go do their own thing, and that might duplicate the work that you and the table are already doing, hurting both of y'all. So you gotta make sure that everyone feels seen, everyone feels heard, and everybody feels valued.
That's you know.
And I think, like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. That's a lot. that could be a lot, but I understand what you mean. And so, what do you think what are some of the things that undermine the ability to be able to do that within? And again, we're talking about within the context of your work and building effective data plans and field strategies. When do people feel least seen, least heard? You know, what are some of the things that you've seen lead to that within the context of your work?
On the data side, it's always, when you're talking to a table, trying to figure out what a table member can actually do without them feeling like they're being used, or making sure that the table doesn't bite off more than they can chew, and then the entire group will fall because that table member couldn't do what they need to do. So, like, sitting down and consulting with them, like, hey, we have a universe of 100,000 guarantee they can do, because I don't want to give you more than you can handle, and I want to give you more resources than you need. If I can just go give more resources to another group and they can definitely handle it. That goes into another issue that I see when I'm at tables, is that some groups are just there to see what resources they can take for their own projects and be like, hey, this is what we can do, and then never deliver. So you always ask a group, so what have you done? What data can you bring to the table so you can prove that we should give you these resources?
And that happens at the front end when you're initially organizing the collaborative, where whoever that chair group is or the chairperson, they then come up with the criteria. And then as they're vetting who's going to be a part of that coalition, they ask them to submit whatever criteria has been requested.
Yeah, but it also, like, that person who's the head of that group needs to check in with these groups and be like, hey, where are you going in your benchmarks? So we can give you extra support if you're not meeting your benchmarks, and if you're crushing your benchmarks, can we give you more work so we can make sure that everyone else hits their benchmarks?
Great, got you. Does anyone else have any questions before we move into our last couple of sections?
Root camp.
Huh? Hold on, Miss. What'd you say?
It's called Root Camp. Remember I told you I can remember the name of the other group?
Root Camp.
Another group, another good data training is Root Camp.
Oh, Root Camp. Okay.
Yes.
I'll put that in the chat too. Thank you. Oh, I found it. Root Camp. Well, no, that's not it. That's a dentist. What should I Google to find it? Root Camp. What?
Just put in Root Camp data training.
Okay. Okay. While I do that, does anybody else feel free to ask your questions for Brandon as well? Okay. Brandon, I might need to circle back and
Yeah,
find.
circle back with me.
Yeah,
I'll send the link to you.
keep finding a dentist boot camp when I Google root camp. I know that's not what you're talking about.
Hey man,
Oh, okay. Paul said, how much coding or GIS is involved in your data dives?
not a lot, cause like if I'm trying to make a report to a higher up, like a higher table or like a national thing, I'll probably do a little coding. But when it comes to like election work, a nonprofit, talking to people work, I do very little coding.
Okay.
For like a big donor or something like that, I might do a little coding, just just to bring it up. But like if I'm doing people to people organizing
Mhm.
or community groups to their members, very little coding.
And when by coding, what do you mean for a layperson like listening like me? At least in regards to this, what do you mean by coding?
Like I would have to write a program to feed into for someone else to look at, probably in Washington D.C. That's usually the coding that I'm going to end up doing.
Okay.
I don't like. You remember the dashboard I made you, Evan?
Yeah.
That's low in what I would be doing, but I would make it into its own page, not something I would use off Google.
Okay, I got you. So like coding in Excel or Access or some of the data
Yeah.
organizing programs.
Yeah.
Okay. Paul, does that answer your question? Let me see. You can thumbs up or say yes in the chat. It does. Okay, I see you. Got you. That answers Paul's questions. Does anybody else have any questions? Feel free to, or just them in the chat or jump in this last 20 minutes. So you normally work, Brandon. You normally work in Texas and elsewhere. Oh, did we lose Brandon?
No, I'm here.
Okay, good.
No,
What was your impression of Alabama prior to starting to work with us? What did you expect to encounter when you started working with us?
Well, I don't. This isn't my first time working with Alabama. Like I've said, I worked with other groups before.
Yeah.
Planned Parenthood has a hold in Alabama, so every once in a while, I ended up being out there in my younger days. I'm very impressed with like they have a thirst of improving their people. I do think there's room to grow, but I see that the table members are going to fill out their room really quickly.
And what's your suggestion for us when we're interested in building our muscles and strengthening ourselves? In regards to data and field strategy, but also just generally speaking, we have Georgia to the right of us, Florida beneath us, Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi to the left. Tennessee and Kentucky are kind of in the same position as we are in many ways, but still there's things we're learning from them. So how do we find our way? What's your suggestion as far as building that muscle?
I would say like start with the basics. Like start setting a basic data like set for every to come together and figure out like, hey, what are we going to do? Where are we going to put all our data? That way we all can understand what each other is doing. So we're not out here replicating work. I think that's going to be something that I see Alabama need to do like a lot. Like, hey, like every group should be like, oh, well, being recorded, not well, my data's on this spreadsheet over here, or well, all our data, I can give it to you and you can look at all our sign-in sheets and know who we talked to. Like you have to find some basic universal place for all the group's data. So there's some place for it to be pulled and compared.
And that place is usually Van, right?
Usually van. Now, mind you, as you go, like, as you head north, it'll start changing to other programs. And as you head west, but like from the south and mid is usually van for progressive organizations.
Brandon, I missed that last part you said about if I head west.
Yeah,
What are
if
they
you
using
head
up?
west, like you start heading west, like, what would I say? Like Arizona onward, they do have van there, but as you start going that way, they start switching to a whole nother program.
Wow. Okay.
Van like, but it's not owned by Van.
Okay.
They have their own program.
We have a question from Barbara Cadell. She said, so we need a data warehouse here.
Yes, ma'am. That is absolutely right. Like, you need a place that every group can drop what they're doing, so you know where you can work together at and where you can't work together at.
Okay. Do you have examples of data warehouses that have also been able to function in a way that doesn't replicate some of the dynamics that might drive tensions in groups? So places that people that inspire people to want to share information as opposed to
Ooh.
feeling, possessive of the information.
Well, every group is going to be possessive of the data of the work that they're doing.
Right, as they should. But I mean, I'm sure there are some places that help people find the value in transcending what could be an instinct to not want to share. And I would assume some places are better than that than others.
Yes and no, man. Like, again, like I'm gonna say, like, every group is gonna be possessive of their data. I found that, like, van tables really do work. Like, what is a good one? American Votes is a good one, but also State Voices.
Mm-hmm.
I found like State Voices is the easiest one that most people go with. We don't like State Voices, but I do see the value of State Voices. If that makes sense to people. Like, I see the value because they're the most simplest one to use, and they also touch a lot of different groups.
Mm-hmm.
But like State Voices, as you already know, Evan, comes in at different levels, and I just don't like that.
Okay. And so y'all know we do have a relationship with the State Voices Network. They are an association of C3 civic engagement tables, and we do have access to their van and can start making that available to others. If anyone's interested in that, I can get an MOU to you. This is something that they actually require, whichever the host organization is. So basically we paid the year's dues. Alabama Forward paid the year's dues to have that relationship with them. And then we can sub-license access to our account at no cost to other organizations. The only thing you'd have to do is fill out and submit the MOU. If you're interested in that, just let me know and I'll get that to you. If y'all have other questions, feel free to put them in the chat or let us know. So, Brandon, going to this last section, it's kind of related to self-care. And I was wondering, what are you reading related to your work that's keeping you inspired or charged?
Ooh,
Or hold on, let me give a push pin. Reading, listening to, watching, and if it's not related to your work, then just generally, what's keeping you inspired and excited about finding new things in your work? You already mentioned conversations with your brother, so we'll add that to the list. But beyond that part, what would you add?
Usually, there is a low-key like Facebook group of data people, and like they post different programs or different stuff that we should check out. So we look at it that way. There is a Repower newsletter, which new Repower. Evan, Repower is also another data training, but they also put out newsletters about different data things that they do.
Okay, I'm gonna put that in.
And that's why you can find Root Camp. Root Camp used to be Repower used to be Root Camp. That's why, Evan.
Oh, here we go. Everybody, it's in the chat now. Oh yeah, okay. I know, I've heard of this group. Thank you.
Yeah, so Root Camp is another one. And also the ladies of Root Camp emphasizes people of color.
Uh-huh.
So does Data Gems. They also offer scholarships to y'all. Just to put that out there.
Awesome.
We didn't have scholarships back in my day. You had to scrounge up the money.
So we have two trained, Repower, Roots Dems, and then there was a third one that you gave us. We'll compile that. Okay, and then where else would you say you're finding inspiration?
There's also a data analytics. I'm trying to get the name of it. Hold on, let me see here. Open the Spotify.